You already know you should be saving more. You already know you're spending money on things that don't actually matter to you. You already know that debt with a 22% interest rate is costing you more than you'll ever earn from a savings account. You know all of this. Most people watching this video do. And yet, nothing changes. The bank balance stays the same. The debt doesn't move. The investment account you were going to open last January still doesn't exist. This is not a video about what you should do with money. You've heard that. You've read it. You've nodded along to it 100 times, felt briefly motivated, and then watched that motivation quietly disappear by the following Tuesday. This video is about something more uncomfortable. Why knowing has almost nothing to do with doing, and what's actually standing between where you are right now and a financial life that works. Because here's the thing nobody in the financial world wants to say out loud. The problem is not information. The problem has never been information. In 2010, researchers studied people who had been given a clinical diagnosis that required immediate lifestyle changes to survive. Not suggestions, not strong recommendations, medical necessity. They were told, clearly, directly by doctors, that without changing their diet and behavior, they would die. 1 year later, almost 90% of them had made no significant changes. These weren't people who didn't understand. They understood completely. They knew exactly what was at stake. The information was as clear and urgent as information can possibly be, and still, almost nothing changed. If a life or death diagnosis can't reliably produce behavior change, what does that tell you about your ability to change your financial habits through willpower and motivation alone? It tells you that motivation is the wrong tool for this job. It always has been. Here is what's actually happening when you know what to do and still don't do it. First, the intention-action gap. Psychologists have studied this for decades across hundreds of different behavioral domains: health, finances, relationships, productivity. The pattern is consistent. The human brain treats an intention, a plan, a goal, a decision, as partially satisfying the desire that created it. When you decide you're going to start saving next month, your brain registers partial progress. The anxiety about not saving decreases slightly, and that decrease in anxiety removes some of the urgency to actually act. In other words, deciding to change and actually changing feels similar enough to your brain that one can quietly substitute for the other, for months, for years, indefinitely. This is why so many people have been meaning to sort out their finances for a very long time. The intention itself is doing just enough to prevent the action. Second, identity friction. Every financial behavior you want to change, overspending, avoiding your bank balance, never investing, always being the person who says they'll start when things settle down, has been reinforced thousands of times. It's not just a habit. It's part of how you see yourself. And the brain protects identity, not consciously, not deliberately, but automatically and persistently. Changes that feel like a threat to who you are will be resisted regardless of how logically you understand them. This is why people who say, "I'm just not good with money," are often right. Not because it's true, but because they've repeated it long enough that their behavior aligns with it automatically. The statement became the identity. The identity became the behavior. The behavior confirmed the statement. A loop that runs without any conscious input required. Breaking that loop doesn't happen through more information. It happens through small, repeated actions that slowly build a different identity. Not, "I'm trying to be better with money," but, "I'm someone who checks their numbers every week. I'm someone who invests every month. I'm someone who has a system." Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. Third, the missing piece that almost no financial content addresses seriously: systems. Motivation fluctuates, Discipline is finite. Willpower depletes with use. This is not a metaphor. It's documented in decades of psychological research. These are not character flaws. They are features of human psychology that apply equally to everyone, including people who appear to have everything together financially. But a system doesn't care about your motivation. A system runs on the days you're exhausted, overwhelmed, distracted, grieving, stressed, and not thinking about money at all. A system doesn't require you to be a different version of yourself. It works with the person you already are, on your worst days, not just your best ones. The people who consistently build wealth over time are not more disciplined than you. They are not more motivated. They are not better at resisting temptation or making heroic daily decisions. They have better systems. An automatic transfer to savings that happens the day after payday, before you can spend the money, doesn't require motivation. An investment contribution set up once, on a fixed date every month, doesn't require willpower. A 15-minute weekly ritual to check your numbers doesn't require discipline. It requires a calendar block. The goal is not to become a person who is exceptional with money through constant effort and vigilance. The goal is to build a structure where the right financial behaviors happen without requiring you to consciously choose them every single time. Because every time you have to choose, you introduce the possibility of choosing wrong. Remove the choice. Build the system. Let it run. There's a reason that lottery winners return to their previous financial state within a few years at alarming rates. More money didn't solve the problem because money was never the problem. The system, or the absence of one, was the problem. And more money simply accelerated whatever system was already in place. And there's a reason people with modest incomes quietly build real wealth over decades, while people who earn twice as much stay stuck. It has nothing to do with the amount. It has everything to do with the structure running underneath. Let me give you a specific example of how this works in practice. Most people have an emergency fund problem. They know they need one. They intend to build one. They've intended to build one for years. And somehow, the account is still empty, or nearly empty, or doesn't exist at all. The solution is not to try harder. The solution is to open a separate savings account you don't see regularly, one that isn't on your main banking screen. Set up an automatic transfer of whatever you can genuinely afford, even $50 a month, to happen 2 days after every paycheck, and then leave it alone. You didn't need more motivation. You didn't need more discipline. You needed one setup that takes 20 minutes and then runs indefinitely every single month, whether you think about it or not. The same logic applies to debt. Most people pay the minimum because that's the default. Change the default. Set up an automatic additional payment, even a small one, above the minimum, on a fixed date. The system does the work. You made one decision instead of 12 decisions a year that you might or might not make correctly depending on how you feel that month. And investing. The most common reason people give for not investing is that they're waiting until they have more money, or more knowledge, or more confidence. None of those things arrive on their own. What actually works is starting with whatever you can automate today, even a small amount, into a low-cost index fund, set to transfer on the same date every month. You begin. The system runs. The amount increases over time as your situation improves. This is the pattern behind every financial behavior that actually sticks. Not motivation, not discipline, not a better understanding of the concepts. One decision, one setup, a system that runs. Now here is the honest part. Understanding all of this is still not the same as having a system. Knowing that you need automations, a weekly check-in, a debt strategy, a net worth tracking habit, an investment threshold, knowing all of that is still just information. At some point, information has to become a specific plan, with your actual numbers, your actual debt, your actual income, your actual starting point. Not a template, not a hypothetical, not someone else's financial situation used as an example. Yours. That gap between understanding a concept and having a working system built from your real numbers is where most people stay stuck. Indefinitely. Consuming more content, nodding along, feeling temporarily motivated, and returning to exactly the same financial position they were in 12 months ago. If you've been watching this channel and you recognize that gap in yourself, the knowing but not doing loop, the link in the description is worth looking at. It's a workbook called The Wealth Blueprint. It's the second guide in the Money Trap series, and it's built specifically for this problem. Not to give you more concepts to think about, but to take what you already understand and turn it into a system built from your real numbers. Net worth tracking, a spending identity audit, a complete debt map with a specific payoff strategy, an income ceiling exercise, investment threshold calculation, an emergency fund plan, a weekly ritual you can actually stick to, and a 90-day blueprint you build yourself, with your numbers, your starting point, your actual life, before you reach the last page. Not motivation, a system, built from where you actually are. Because that's what changes things. Not the next video you watch, not the next book you mean to read. The system you build and let run. Subscribe if you want to keep going. New video every week. And if this one landed, share it with someone who's been stuck in the knowing but not doing loop longer than they'd like to admit. The system is the answer. Build it once. Let it run.